My name is Mike Hirschberg. I'm the Executive Director of AHS International, and I'll be telling you guys, give you guys my perspective on the future of vertical flight. First of all, at the very top there, you can see a URL, a tinyurl.com/AHS-Heli-Expo-2018. You can download all these slides. In fact, if you want to download them, you can leave right now. No, just kidding. If you want to see the slides I did last time, you can write that down and then put in 17 instead of 18, and you can compare what I said last year compared to this year. So I have industry forecasts. I had 11 slides last year on electric VTOL. I'm not sure anybody knew what I was talking about then, but maybe you guys do now. And there's my email address. How many of you guys have heard of AHS before? Show of hands. Pretty much everybody. Okay. All right. Well, you probably may still think of us as the American Helicopter Society, which is what we were founded 75 years and a day ago. So on February 25th was the first meeting of what became AHS International today. It was started by folks from Sikorsky and the other helicopter companies, basically a few weeks after Sikorsky had first gotten their first production contract, really the first American helicopter production contract, the XR4. We are the first and longest serving nonprofit working on helicopters and vertical flight. We were international from the beginning. We had scientists and engineers from the UK and other wartime allies. But we were really founded by the developers, the manufacturers, the folks in industry, academia, and government who are trying to develop the helicopter. It had flown. It was starting to have some utility. They were putting it into service to see what it could do, but it wasn't particularly useful at that point. Today, fast forward 75 years, so we have about 6,000 individual members and close to 100 corporate members, and we're working to advance vertical flight worldwide. And at the top of each of the slides, well, at the top of many of the slides, you can see some URLs if you're interested in more information about those. So for 75 years, we've been doing a lot of great work to advance vertical flight technology. For those of you who are familiar with some of the government offices, NASA, there's a joint NASA-Army office, the Vertical Lift Research Center of Excellence, those are universities around the U.S., National Rotorcraft Technology Center, Vertical Lift Consortium. Those are different things that AHS had a hand in establishing those bodies. We've worked with NASA and DoD to save the full-scale wind tunnels back in the early 2000s when NASA was zeroing out all of their rotorcraft funding and trying to shut down their full-scale wind tunnels. You can see there in the upper right. AHS worked with the Army and the Air Force and NASA to transition those the management of those facilities to from NASA to DoD, saving those as a national resource. AHS also provided a lot of vital support to technology developments over the years. Technologies like fly-by-wire and rotorcraft, such as the V-22 Osprey, the civil tiltrotor, the JSF F-35, the short takeoff and vertical landing joint strike fighter. That's actually why I'm here, is because I was a young aerospace engineer in the early 90s, working in the JSF office, and every forum there'd be an entire day devoted to the JSF program at that point. Basically from 95 through 2001, at the end of the JSF program that developed the F-35, we were a major partner in that effort. Since then, we've also done other great things. We helped start the Future Vertical Lift program, and now we've been helping for the last 5 or 6 years, helping to provide a community of understanding and a community of interest for electric and hybrid electric aircraft, eVTOL. So you guys are the press, so we have a magazine. We're more than just a magazine. A magazine is one thing that we do, but we if you look at the covers of the magazine, it shows some of the things that we've been looking at from a perspective. So advanced military developments, distributed electric VTOL, advanced civil technologies, urban air taxis, things like clean sky and joint multi-role, JMR, or future vertical lift, compound helicopters, tilt rotors, advanced tilt rotors, unconventional configurations, and a lot of the electric VTOL things like the Vahana, the Airbus winged eVTOL, many of which are now in flight testing, and some of which have been fairly far ahead, fairly far along in flight testing. You guys know that before the end of the year, Bell, when they were still Bell Helicopter, flew their tilt rotor up to 80 knots and cruised around downtown Amarillo, showing off their stuff. So it's been able to do a lot of testing over the last several weeks, and it's really a next generation tilt rotor, trying to make it a tilt rotor actually to be affordable. And they've been doing some great stuff with that program. And of course, that's a military development. But of course, Bell is also looking at civil derivatives and other applications for tilt rotor and other advanced rotorcraft technologies. Vahana, that's A-Cubed by Airbus. That's Airbus's Silicon Valley, kind of far out there thinker. So this is a 8 electric motor propeller tilt wing, has a tandem wing. This is a designed to be a single seat. This one's actually it's been flying autonomously, unmanned, but this is their concept for a single passenger electric VTOL. Another company that's been in the news lately, Joby, they have an aircraft called the S4 that's been flying for the last year or so. It was the news was kind of broken in Bloomberg on February 1st, or 4 years ago at one of our conferences. But this shows a comparison of the 4-seat S4 versus a size comparison of the R44. So 6 propeller tilt rotor, ultra quiet, about 200 miles an hour. Obviously, you can see it's much beefier. It's a scaled drawing compared to the R44. It's much beefier, so it's about twice as heavy as well. And currently constrained by the battery technology. But we know the batteries will improve, and they've already been able to demonstrate some good flight testing. And here you can see the quote from the reporters there that got to see it. Be able to fly at twice the speed of a helicopter while making about as much noise as a swarm of super bees. So I'm not sure about super bees, how much noise they make, but you get the idea. It's different. It's not a rotorcraft in the sense of what we consider to be a helicopter or a rotorcraft. It's really a fixed-wing aircraft that can do a vertical takeoff and landing. Also, we've seen with electric VTOL a whole spectrum of applications, from a single-seat ultralight. And this is a prototype, so the operational version, which we're supposed to release in the next couple weeks, is going to be a much more refined consumer product. But this is basically so easy a child could fly it. It's particularly focused on safety. So this was just a flying demonstrator that they showed at Oshkosh. But aviation really is coming to the consumer, as we saw here in this convention center last month. We used to be the Consumer Electronics Show, CES. Bell was the first helicopter manufacturer to exhibit back when they were still Bell Helicopter. But that sort of proves the point. Okay, they're really investing in advanced forms of vertical flight. So new tilt rotors, electric VTOL aircraft. The propulsion system wasn't shown here, but if you look in the magazine, there's some possible depictions of what it would look like. Also at the bottom left, you see Workhorse. They've spun off a company called Surefly, so they're looking at their electric quadcopter, 2-seat, that's hybrid electric. In the bottom right, you see the Volocopter. So this was pretty attention-grabbing at CES. They flew it on stage at the Intel CEO's display because Intel's investing in Volocopter. They flew it indoors. They had about 5 foot of clearance on either side, and it just very smoothly went up, and went down. They also showed a video where the CEO of Intel was a passenger on it several weeks before. So aviation is especially vertical flight and electric aviation is really changing in what it'll be in the future. So it's vertical flight is not just going to be a expensive helicopter. They see this as being something more like a car or a fixed-wing airplane where it's going to really come to the masses. So with that introduction, so what is AHS International? So as I mentioned, we were formed originally as American Helicopter Society, but we're really the global vertical flight technical society. And everything from micro air vehicles and quadcopters to helicopters and eVTOL and STOVL, really anything that spins and produces thrust. We exist to expand the knowledge about vertical flight and promote its application around the world, safety and acceptability, things like noise, and we really advocate for research and development funding for vertical flight technology. And we help to educate and support today's engineers and tomorrow's. We have a robust scholarship program where we try to find the best and the brightest engineers and scientists around the world and provide scholarships. So AHS represents the engineers, scientists, and innovators who are working to bring new products, such as what I've shown before and what I'll show here in the rest of some of my slides. We have an annual forum that attracts about 1,300 engineers, scientists, and leaders from industry, academia, and government. So that includes generally the CEOs or the heads of the different helicopter companies, as well as generals and admirals, colonels, and captains from the U.S. military, other managers and researchers. It's really primarily a conference, so 250 technical papers, plus we have a bunch of panelists, exhibitors. We have an awards banquet. Igor Sikorsky was our first award winner in 1944. We get our scholarships. We have different student competitions. The next one is going to be in May in Phoenix, and we have a eVTOL short course that we're planning, as well as about two or three other days of electric VTOL presentations. So you guys are all encouraged to come, and media gets to attend for free. So we recognize electric VTOL as being a burgeoning technology area in 2013. 2014, we had our first Transformative Vertical Flight Workshop. We've had annual conferences. We just had our 5th annual workshop and conference last month in San Francisco. It was really a major event. We now have, you can see there the short URL there, vtol.org/TVF for Transformative Vertical Flight. We have the presentation slides from pretty much all the presenters, as well as videos, video recordings of each of the presentations. So it's about 16 hours of presentations that you guys can see there. So there's more than 50 companies now around the world that are developing electric VTOL. And in fact, I got 3 emails today from different companies that said, yes, we should be on your website too. We're developing electric VTOL concepts. So I'll be adding those. And this is actually an old slide here. I missed the update here. But it's really there's at least $1 billion has gone into electric VTOL over the last several years. And you saw before Joby had $100 million invested in it. We know Lilium had $100 million. Volocopter had $100 million. We know that Larry Page has probably put in $200 million into his 2 companies, Z-Aero and Kitty Hawk. So this is really a big deal. This is a lot of money, a lot of technology. It's really going to revolutionize flight. On the top right, I see Uber Elevate. So they unveiled this concept at one of our workshops. We collaborated or helped them with their white paper, and we're featured at their summit. So Uber is trying to develop an ecosystem. So they're really looking at the heliports, the charging systems, the air traffic control, the airspace infrastructure, the ground infrastructure, real estate companies, aircraft development companies, operators. So they're looking at the whole ecosystem, and they're just one player in this, but they're really taking a leadership role instead of developing aircraft, trying to develop the ecosystem. And then they want to actually probably not even be the operators, but just take a slice of the revenue like they do today with their Uber cars. But one thing that's really people get confused about is these are not air taxis in the sense that it is not an Uber airplane that's going to come and land in your front yard or come up and pull up in your driveway. You're going to, if you want to use Uber Air, which is what their app will be, you say you want to go across town or whatever, you press the button, it says how fast you want to get there. You want to get an Uber X, Uber Pool, or Uber Air. A car will come and pick you up, take you to a launch point, a helipad, or a skyport as they call them, take you across town, and if they need to, have a car drive you the last mile. So it's not a taxi, it's not an air taxi in the sense that it's going to come to your house, but it's really more of an air shuttle service. So at the conference last month, we had a really record-breaking attendance. It was about 350 attendees, which is about twice what we normally get for that conference. This is a conference that's primarily organized by the local San Francisco area rotorcraft engineers and scientists, so primarily NASA and Army rotorcraft engineers. So you had the traditional helicopter people, NASA, Army, the rotorcraft OEMs, suppliers, etc. And you also had the eVTOL community, so companies like Joby, Z, Carter, Terrafugia, Aurora Flight Sciences. And then it was really interesting because you had the new tech companies. You had Uber, Intel, Amazon, Honda, Toyota, companies that were looking to invest, companies that were already developing things, companies that were looking for vertical suppliers or horizontal partners, as well as the big OEMs, I'll say, so companies like Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, that were there that are also in this market. So pretty much anybody that's in aviation now, hyperbole, but anybody that's in aviation or automotive is really looking at this as something that's going to be more like a car, more like a fixed-wing aircraft that can fly vertically rather than a helicopter. And so the technical community has really embraced this concept. Not everybody, but when people spend 3 or 4 days at one of these events, they really get to, as they peel back the onion, they really get to see the details and really understand what's going on. So AHS, like I said, we've been providing these forums for 5 years now. It's really helped with the understanding and collaboration, and we've been recognized by the companies as really a leader, a thought leader in this area. So there was a Flight Global poll that was a few weeks ago. And the question was, are air taxis on a ride to nowhere? And so the 1,300 votes, so 15% indicated that they thought that that air taxis really were viable. 32%, a third, fleeting gimmick, and 52% ranked stupidity. Now, I won't say that the attendees in an AHS forum are necessarily smarter than the subscribers or the readers of Flight Global magazine online, but they had spent 3 or 4 days at this event. And so we did a poll afterwards, and the 2 questions: did the conference and workshop change your mind? So no, it didn't change their mind, but would it be operational in the next 5 to 10 years? So 22% said, no, it didn't change my mind, and it won't be operational in the next 5 to 10 years. 37% said, no, it didn't change my mind because I already knew that they'd be operational in the next 5 to 10 years. 2% said, I thought it was going to be happening in the next 5 to 10 years, but now I've changed my mind and it won't. And then 21% said, I changed my mind and now they'll be operational. We believe they'll be operational in 5 to 10 years. And there was also 17% that said, well, it won't be in 5 to 10, but it'll be after that. So you can see about 59% said not only that it will happen, but it'll happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And it's really, in my opinion, it's really not a question of if, it's really when. Electric battery power is improving, the technology is improving, motors, the understanding, the aerodynamics, and it's really just a question of who's going to be first to market and who's going to be best to market. So why now? So the last 10 years there have been tremendous advances in electric motors, advances in batteries, computer modeling, simulation, advancements in composites. There's been a change to the FAR Part 23, what used to be small airplanes. They're changing that to allow for electric propulsion. They're changing that to allow for basically any kind of standard to be incorporated. So ASTM and GAM and others are developing the standards by which you can have a fixed-wing airplane, an electric-powered airplane,
fly vertically and transport passengers. So it's really a matter of when is this going to happen, when is the certification, and when is there going to be a certification standards that allow this, and when can companies get these approved. And Uber and others are saying, other companies are saying it's going to be 2023. Well, maybe it won't be 2023. Maybe it'll be 28. 10 years from now, or maybe it'll be after that. But it's just really a matter of when, not if. So when you combine all those things with the high risk, the risk-taking ability of innovators and entrepreneurs with the cash. So as I mentioned, over $1 billion of tech investments have gone into this so far, and you have companies like SpaceX, Elon Musk, a billionaire that's revolutionized a number of different things, including electric cars, and just launched the largest rocket since the Saturn V, and launched Starman. There are people with a lot of money that are investing in this new capability, this brave new frontier. So when you take all that, you then look at how would you start from scratch, throw out the aircraft design playbook, start from scratch with looking at distributed electric propulsion or other means, and design a new type of aircraft. Some people are also looking at electric helicopters. To me, it's not, I don't see there's a real huge benefit in that way. There's been several that are flown. And Sikorsky used to show this picture of all the stuff that they took out of their Schweitzer when they got rid of the mechanical system. So that's just weight, right? But then they had to add in, that's weight and complexity. They had to add in the weight and complexity of the batteries. But this really doesn't. It doesn't give you a revolution. It's okay. Now you have 1/20th of the energy density of a fuel, liquid fuel. So you have 1/20th of the capability. So we really only get that capability back and exceed helicopter capability when you can get rid of your entire rotor system. So get rid of the cyclic collective swatch plate. You can get rid of any kind of pitch control if you need to, transmissions, gearbox, shafting, hydraulics, all the things that mechanical systems that tend to fail. You can replace a single complex system, it's really two, the main rotor and the tail rotor, with lots of simple thrusters. But the main thing is, even if your energy density is a 1/20th of that of the fuel system, because you can fly on a wing, you can go faster and you go much longer range. So you have much lower noise, and now with energy transmission improvements, now there's actually not only no tailpipe emissions, but there are actually less environmentally, fewer pollutants overall in the whole system. So electric helicopters is not what we're talking about. Oops. When people developed the car, they didn't figure out how to make a mechanical horse, right? And that's sort of what we're talking about here. You're not trying to invent a mechanical horse, even though somebody in China did, but that's not what we're talking about, okay? So it's something that's completely different than a helicopter, and there's more than 50 companies now. Some of them you won't recognize them. Some of them are pretty small, but things like Airbus, Aurora Flight Sciences, Bell, Embraer, Joby I mentioned, Lilium, Mooney, Pipistrel, other ones XTI, Sikorsky, Zero, EHang you may be familiar with, or Volocopter. Boeing hasn't announced what they're doing, but they're doing different things. A lot of companies haven't said specifically what they're doing, but everybody's doing something basically. And I just want to advise everybody, so please don't call it a flying car. These are flying cars. They actually are roadable aircraft. They actually drive on the ground and fly, so those are flying cars. But otherwise, it's not a flying car. You can use air taxi, electric VTOL, some other word. The only sense that you can call it really a flying car is if you meant something like with the Jetsons, where that was their flying car. But that's sort of more tongue-in-cheek. Okay, so with all that, now I'm going to tell you about the forecasts for the helicopter industry, and so there's a bit of a shift, and we use Forecast International from Connecticut to do our forecasts, and even though they've been exposed to the eVTOL stuff, they really didn't realize until recently that it really is coming. But in my perspective, is not going to, electric VTOL are not really going to replace helicopters. It's really a new capability to add missions that we can't do today. So things like flying from city center to city center, or downtown, where it's the noise of a helicopter or other things are going to prevent operation in close proximity to people. There's various reasons why it could expand the market beyond what helicopters have today. But looking at, so again, these are all available for download, but looking at the whole civil plus military, looking at the last 10 years and the forecast for the next 10 years is actually pretty much the same. Pretty much all the market shares are more or less the same, and the overall market size is about the same. It's 5% less. But the real big difference is the Bell-Boeing V-22 decreases by $10 billion, and that's about the amount of change. So you'll see that Bell-Boeing goes from here in the red to over there in that color. Looking just at the civil market, there are some differences. So Airbus is expected to gain not only in market share, but also in actual market. Leonardo also. Bell helicopters expected to go to double sales from about $4 billion to it's actually about $3.5 billion to $7 billion in civil sales. So they've traditionally been focused more on military, but they've been expanding their civil products and have some great products out today. Interestingly, in the civil market, Russian helicopters, which was the top helicopter producer for several years, is now down. They're expected to be down 30% of the next 10 years, and some of that's because of the political reasons of not wanting to buy Russian helicopters anymore, and the issues they've had with Ukraine as well. And Sikorsky is expected to be down about 50% of the last 10 years, and I'm not sure if that includes Schweitzer, the change in Schweitzer, but they never really sold much in Schweitzer anyway, so I'm not sure it would really matter. So looking, and again, all these are available for download, but looking at this long-term outlook for, this is civil and military production, so production numbers are going to be going up. There's a dip there as replacements are being, aren't needed as quickly. And this is 10 years back and 10 years forward. There was a huge ramp up in military production, so you can really see the military increase here because they're so expensive. But to combine civil going up and military slightly coming down, and you see that the helicopter industry, the companies are going to be pretty much at a good steady level there of about $17 billion a year, which compared to where they were 10 years ago is a significant increase. But obviously with the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, had a peak there in the 2013 timeframe. Just looking at kind of long-term outlook, so this is civil production units, production value on the left, military production units and production value on the right. This is looking for your it's a big picture. There's an upswing in civil sales and value, and a general decline, slow decline in military production and units. Now, when over the last several years, the major OEMs developed large aircraft, super medium aircraft for the offshore market, which turned out to mainly evaporate, but they do have very, very good large aircraft that are now on the market. We have the 160 that's now here today, so that's a lighter aircraft, a medium twin. As mentioned before, Bell now has 2 new products, and then they're also announcing upgrades to their existing products. Leonardo has their family, and they've been very successful in selling people a range of aircraft across their family. Bell is now also developing their civil tiltrotor, and I think the latest was it's supposed to be certificated next year, I think. They've been doing icing testing, so things have been finally getting close to certification for that. Under the Clean Sky 2 program, they're also developing a next generation civil tiltrotor. Now, for their demonstration, they're actually going to take a 609 and put a different wing on it with fixed engines and test out some of the technologies for that. In contrast, Airbus is developing the Racer, which has 2 pusher propellers, and they're actually building this, I believe, the whole thing from scratch. This is similar to the X-Cube that they flew several years ago, but with the props pushing backwards, pushing aft. And for those interested, we do have some detailed articles on each of these aircraft as well. So one of the things that AHS does is we advocate for vertical flight research and development. We've been very successful in lobbying Congress with grassroots efforts. Back in the 2008 timeframe, we lobbied and we were able to get Congress to add language in the 2009 Defense Authorization Bill that directed the initiation of the Future Vertical Lift program. When the DoD was sort of stalling on that, we had all the CEOs of all the companies sign a letter to the Secretary of Defense urging the release of the Future Vertical Lift Strategic Plan. Over the last 4 years, if they ever pass the budget this year, we'll have had a total of $45 million over the last 4 years that have been added to the Army Aviation Advanced Technology funding line that has gone towards innovative technologies and companies under the Future Vertical Lift umbrella. And just to clarify, so Joint Multi-Role is the current S&T demonstration program that's underway. So that's what you'll see that the 2 companies flying, and Future Vertical Lift is the acquisition program, the production program. We've also been very active in NASA's advocacy. I mentioned before when NASA zeroed out the funding for rotorcraft, we were able to get Congress to restore that. Over the years, as NASA tries to reduce its rotorcraft, we work with industry to advise Congress of the benefits of restoring it. When NASA was getting rid of their wind tunnels, we were able to successfully save those. So we've been really busy and working with NASA and Congress to keep NASA rotorcraft. And now it's no longer rotorcraft, it's now Revolutionary Vertical Lift Technology Program. So they've also expanded their purview to all of vertical flight as well. Okay, now I'm going to talk about Future Vertical Lift a bit more in detail. So the U.S. military has the best aircraft in the world. They demonstrated their capabilities over 17 years now in Afghanistan and Iraq and around the world doing tremendous things. They learned from the early deficiencies. There were 400 aircraft accidents and 600 American lives lost in the conflicts, with the overwhelming majority of those from accidents rather than shoot downs. They were really stressed at the limits of what they were capable of. So the V-22 is the only new design that's been fielded in the last 30 years. Other designs originally developed 30 to 50 years ago, and some of those aircraft are even still flying today. The 53K, the King Stallion, is the only new design in the acquisition process, and it is an all-new aircraft that's based on the architecture of the 53A that was first flown in the 60s. So in the conflicts, the military found a lot of capability gaps, things like working in high altitude, speed, range, payload, endurance, things like relatively basic cockpits. They were able to upgrade cockpits, but still not a lot of autonomy or collaboration. And I mentioned a lot of the losses in aircraft, which is really just unacceptable. There's also costly sustainment, and they were able to get a lot of the aircraft to continue to fly just with lots and lots and lots of spares and maintenance. So really unacceptable. So that was some of the genesis for the start of the Future Vertical Lift program. The Army funded 2 companies, the Sikorsky Boeing team for their Defiant design, and Bell Helicopter at the time, now Bell for the V-280 Valor. 2 other companies were funded for initial designs, and the Army has continued to invest in these smaller companies to do some demonstrations and continues to do some development efforts, partly with the funds that we've been able to add to the congressional budget. So just a comparison of designs from the coaxial compound Sikorsky and Sikorsky Boeing designs. So in 2008, Sikorsky began flying their X2 technology demonstrator. 2015 with their Raider, and then the plan is that in 2018 they'll fly their Defiant. So the JMR concept is targeted towards a Black Hawk and Apache replacement. What FEL will actually end up asking for as far as an acquisition program still remains to be seen. It's getting less likely that it'll cover Apache. So they're looking at whether they should do medium, which is capability set 3, or maybe capability set 1, which is the Scout, which would be more for this kind of range, this kind of size range here with their Raider. So obviously V-22, 609 are flying. The Valor I showed before is beginning to fly. It flew right before Christmas. Sikorsky's been flying their Raider, but they have not flown Defiant, and they've been really pretty mum about what's going on with their program, and I don't have any intel on that. These are the concepts for their future vertical lift operational concepts. So this would be something like a Black Hawk replacement, something like an Apache replacement, but that'll depend on what the Pentagon ends up asking for. Meantime, they've developed their smaller S-97 Raider, which they built 2 aircraft. One of them had a hard landing. They haven't started flying again with their second aircraft, but that effort's still underway. And let's see, so finally, just as some wrap-up stuff, so we have lots of resources with our website, so evtol.news. It's a compendium of all the 50-some different companies developing electric VTOL aircraft. We have Facebook, Twitter, feeds. I mentioned all the videos we had from our Transformative Vertical Flight conference last week. So those are now all on our YouTube channel. So sign up for our newsletter. Go to our website, evtol.news. You can sign up for that. Get links, lots and lots more information on electric vertical flight. So in summary, AHS, we're the Global Vertical Flight Technical Society. We've got a great conference coming up in May. There's lots of developments in more traditional civil and military rotorcraft, both in helicopters and advanced rotorcraft like tilt rotors and compounds. And then, as I mentioned, lots of money is going into electric VTOL. It really is coming. And it's going to be I think, an explosive expansion, just like drones were, where they kind of came out of nowhere. They haven't really taken away that many roles from helicopters yet to date. There is some encroachment on some missions, but I think that's what you'll see with manned eVTOL, where there will be some loss of missions, but it'll really expand the ability for vertical flight operators to take advantage of these new products, where things that weren't able to be done before. And I do want to advertise again. So this is a broad overview. On Wednesday morning, we've got executives from Bell. Dang it, I didn't update that. The company that used to be called Bell Helicopter, Uber, Gamma, and the FAA talking about their views on electric VTOL and the electric VTOL revolution. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you didn't get the URL at the beginning, there it is again, and if you would like to see what I said last year, just replace the 2018 with 2017. Well, great. So thank you all for your attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions. So the question was whether I saw the MIT study presented at the AAA SciTech, and I did not see that specifically, but we are working with the MIT guys, so I'm familiar with them. The question was about noise. So not everybody who's doing work has revealed what they're doing. I'll just say that the anecdotal and the measured testing indicates that there are, and it's not an accurate number, but a tenth or a hundredth as loud as a conventional helicopter. So the question is that going to be quiet enough, and will the public accept that? And that certainly is to be determined. But I guess I'll say on the other hand, if you can't operate from urban centers, there's still a lot of other missions. If you could fly over the Grand Canyon, for instance, or other noise-sensitive areas at, you know, a tenth or a hundredth of the noise, especially you're really talking about noise, you're really talking about in hover. So when you're actually flying on a wing, you're not going to really make any noise. There's no engine noise. It's only the you know, the air noise. So I think one way or another, they will greatly expand what we have available today as far as products to operate with vertical flight. And I think they will get quieter. I mean, we know how to make things quiet. It's really, you know, things like disk loading and payload. But that's one of the reasons why the aircraft are smaller to begin with, is to keep the noise down. So I guess the answer is we'll see. Again, it's kind of going to kind of depend on the products. So there is XDI aircraft is building a regional bizjet, eVTOL hybrid bizjet that they think they can get 1,000 miles range out of. For shorter flights, so you could probably do it on electric for smaller, shorter flights. But I think, you know, you're really talking about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, 50 years from now. I think battery technology, electric motor technology, and hybrid electric power will improve. But definitely, there's definitely a role to play, and I think all the engine manufacturers are now talking about electric, hybrid electric capability, and that's definitely when you start talking about scaling things up. And even Bell for their air taxi has said they'll probably start out initially hybrid electric. It's not going to be zero emissions, but that'll give more power and range and capability than they would have otherwise. And I'll also say that with regards to the competition, the GMR competition. So just because you know, Valor flew in December and we don't know when Defiant's going to fly, doesn't mean that, you know, Bell's product is going to win or something like that. So you know, both of them are experimental. Both of them are science and technology demonstration programs. So it really comes down to whether those capabilities that they demonstrate indicate that an actual product has the capabilities that they think. So basically, you know, were they able to predict and demonstrate the capabilities that they said they were going to. So don't count Bell. That's right. Don't count Boeing Sikorsky out. Yeah, it's a science and technology demonstration, and the government may say, you know, we don't want it that big. We want the capability set, you know, 1 or 2 or something else. The science and technology community made a lot of promises, but the acquisition people don't listen to them. All right. Well, great. There's another press briefing, I think, after this. So we need to clear the room as quickly as possible. I'll be outside if anybody has any questions, and I'll be happy to chat, and we can schedule some interviews if anybody would like to talk to me afterwards. So thank you again for coming.